Right, back live with you tonight. You're in focus, and thanks for staying on. Cosatu has appealed to government to intervene after the Construction, Education and Training Authority board's R4 million planned field trip was halted. The board members' trip was to cover 5 countries, including it in the package would have been a 250,000 rands pocket money, we are told. Cosatu spokesperson Zanele Sabela told Newzroom Afrika last week that this was the CEO's attempt to distract the board members because he's facing allegations himself. The chairperson now I beg your pardon, the chairperson of the board, Thabo Masombuka, is joining us for that conversation. Chair, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time and for coming on this evening. It seems your appearance at the Portfolio Committee also did not assist the situation, judging by the letter, strongly worded, I suppose, statement that would have come from that Portfolio Committee on your appearance there. In fact, they're saying they are outraged at the persistent denial of governance irregularities to the attempted justification of this controversial benchmarking trip. What do you say to that?
Well, good evening, TM. Good evening, Mr. Mdluli and your viewers. Let me start by stating this as a matter of fact, that in fact, our engagement at the Portfolio Committee was very helpful in the sense that it provided, albeit inadequately so, an opportunities for the board to place in proper context and in writing the detailed report of the circumstances surrounding the so-called corrupted trip and all matters related thereto, including matters related to corruption, interference by the CEO, and all sorts of allegations leveled against the CETA as an institution. But let me state this for the record, Mr. Mdluli, that the reason under normal circumstances would have let this matter slide and we move on because we provided the Department of Higher Education with a detailed report. We provided the Minister of Higher Education with a detailed report. And so have we provided the Portfolio Committee with a report on all matters related to and circumstances surrounding the trip. But we requested this opportunity for a few reasons. Reason number one, so that we avoid the perpetuation of the narrative, as done by Cosatu last week and many others who wrote on the story, to continue to create an impression that the trip for benchmarking the work of CETA was an attempt by a CEO to sidetrack the board. We find that extremely contemptuous at worst, and very disrespectful at best. And I'll tell you why. Mr. Mdluli, today we had a session with stakeholders. It's called a stakeholder engagement session with levy payers, the people who pay the tax and the money that sustains the CETA, to take them into confidence on issues related to this negative media publicity and what we think and what we know to be the basis and the cause for this narrative. And they were happy with the explanation, and in fact they gave us a thumbs up to continue with the work of CETA, because part of what we're reporting on is not just these malicious allegations, but the progress of CETA in relation to skills development programs and the trainings and all other work of CETA that benefits beneficiaries.
Right.
I know you're seated there, Mr. Mdluli, and wondering that other allegations made by City Press One, repeated by various individuals and organizations, including Cosatu, factually correct? The answer is a big no.
Yeah.
And here are the facts.
So let's talk the facts a little bit more. So were you going to 5 countries? Were you each going to get pocket money of 250,000?
Okay. So here are the facts. In summary, and it's very disappointing when the organizations such as Cosatu, who has access to the board, by the way, who has access to, and let me for the record tell your viewers, Mr. Mdluli, that NEHAU, which is the narrative sponsor, the sponsors of the narrative that led to the interview that Sis Zanele did, is not the only, it may be the only organization mobilizing the workers and employees at CETA, but if you know the composition and structure of boards and training authorities, you would know that they are made up of constituencies. They are constituency-based boards, right? So it means we have employer organizations and employee unions representing general workers in the construction economy.
Yeah.
And there are at least 3 or 4, if I'm not inaccurate, or members of the board who sit at CETA representing unions, the affiliate of Cosatu, which Cosatu, through Zanele, would have had access to understand and verify the veracity of these allegations. So there was no trip that was carried out, and there was no 4 million rand that was spent, and there would have been no 4 million rand spent on each board members. The trip would not have been made up of board members only. It was a part and parcel of a well-planned, structured initiative budgeted for that would have been carried out in accordance with cost-benefit analysis that is done. By the way, this trip, if it did go ahead, Mr. Mdluli, was already canvassed and supported by the National School of Government that is responsible for researching and benchmarking all other international engagements in line with the research and the outcomes that is intended. All those things were done.
Yeah. So explain while we are there, why would then, if you're saying it's so properly planned and would have been so beneficial, would a deputy minister backed by the committee look at this and say, we don't understand why you've got your term coming to an end. What benefit is this going to be for the CETA? When are you going to apply these things that you're going to learn there?
Aha. So here's the context. This is the context that's very important, which, by the way, in our report to Parliament, including for the attention of the minister and the consumption of the deputy minister, and all who cares to listen, which is what we stated to stakeholders today. The context is that the unfortunate part about the engagement with the deputy minister and the portfolio committee was already based on the articles and the reports in the media, which is already was a premise moving from a factually incorrect narrative. And this is what we try to explain, that here's a context. Someone at CETA intercepted a submission to the board. By the way, that trip was not finalized. By the way, if that trip would have been finalized, it would have been required the approval and concurrence of the department, which is an executive authority for all CETA. So that does not happen. No money was paid. And if there was any money, it would have been paid. It would have been in accordance with the national Treasury guidelines and regulations. But let me tell you what happened, Mr. Mdluli. Because of the historical issues happening at CETA before our arrival as the new board that was appointed in August 2022, there's been already a toxic environment of accusations and cross-accusation. So somebody instrumentalized and weaponized the journalist who wrote the article to create a scandalous impression. And once it hit the first page of a newspaper, ordinarily, South Africans would respond with outrage, politicians would condemn, everyone else. But we try to explain that how we read it. The trip was weaponized to create an impression that the scandal and the CEO is responsible for bribing the board. How disrespectful. But we did follow up these allegations and then sent to the CEO, and we would recall in Adrian So, if your recollection would serve you well, that I went in there, and this is what Cosatu says. It says, disrespectfully so, they say I came in to defend the CEO and the trip. No. I went there to attempt to explain that there are processes at CETA, and we are going to subject the CEO to a process where all allegations leveled against him are subject to legal scrutiny. And we've done exactly that. And we've reported this to the Minister of Higher Education, the department, and the portfolio committee. That is why I'm saying to you, Mr. Mdluli, under normal circumstances, having done all those things, having written all those reports, we as the board would have preferred to let the matter go. But today's stakeholders, the levy payers, reassured us that it's important that we go out there, set the record straight, communicate the proper information and facts, because Mr. Mdluli, as you would appreciate, if a lie and if a factually inaccurate narrative is left unattended and unchallenged, the likelihood is that it has the propensity to become the truth. In the same way as, for an example, the photo in the picture that you used to advertise where your graphic teams swept by mistake and said Matume is Thabo and I am Matume. So if actually inaccurate things are left unchallenged, then they have a propensity. They have a propensity.
No, but so we're gathering the facts. The fact is, one, there was no 4 million that would have been spent. The 4 million you're saying rises from a leak, it would seem, that would have been leaked to the newspaper, which had not yet been approved at all. But here's the other issue that the committee raises. Now, it's not Cosatu, it's the committee. The committee says the countries concerned are not even the best practice countries that would actually want to go to for benchmarking.
But here's the thing. Already I've indicated, Mr. Mdluli, that the unfortunate part about the engagements with the committee was that already it moved from an incorrect premises, because the sources of discussions were the media report. But here's the thing, and I repeat this for the record. CETA, as a board, the board of CETA received submissions about any form of engagements, like we do with our project oversight in Guavuma, in Goche, Brederstorp, Port Nolet, Litabe. Just over a weekend ago, we're in Maumani, launching a new skills development project. And we're there as board members to give assurance to stakeholders and communities that the work is going to benefit those what you call. No one complains about that. No one writes about that because it's a good story. But here's the thing. When the committee then says the countries that you chose are not even in accordance with the best practices, but then again, that's factually incorrect, because we didn't choose the countries. It is the national schools of government that we engaged with that would recommend to you, Mr. Mdluli, what are the best practice countries. So there is a problematic narrative that goes out there to create an impression that this was a holiday. And the Cosatu person who came here last week, and you did ask her, confirms this same factually inaccurate narrative again, perpetuates it and says, yeah, the board was just going on a holiday. Which holiday? So let's talk about institutional handover. You don't stop working as an institution because your term of office comes to an end in 6 months' time. But what do you do in whatever you engage? And the areas that we're quite frankly comfortable with, which were part of the outcome of a research that will be informed any work of CETA, relate to issues around technology, innovation, new forms of technological construction, mega implementation of projects, and all those things. Those destinations were recommended, and they were not approved yet. They were recommended by a national school of government that actually specializes on such engagement. So it's not like as Cosatu wants us to believe, and whoever else, that board members and the CEO sat in a little corner and decided to agree. So we would preferably, Mr. Mdluli, quite frankly, never talk about a trip that never happened, monies that were never paid, but would prefer to talk about the progressively improving work that is done at CETA, that we took after administration, by the way, relating to audit findings, governance system, improving financial accountability, ensuring that there are skills development initiatives that benefit the multitudes and thousands and millions of students and learners out there in the country.
Chairperson, let me take a break. I want to give you a chance to talk about that, because that's exactly where I was coming next to those audit outcomes. Chairperson of the Construction Education and Training Authority, Thabo Masombuka. Let's take a break. We'll continue in a moment with him. Back with you, Chairperson of the board at CETA, Thabo Masombuka, joining us to respond, of course, some of the issues that the Portfolio Committee has been raising, but also the unions have been raising their red flags being raised by Nahau around the trip, which the chairperson says is a trip that never happened, and that was not going to happen, so it seems. But let's go to the audit issues. The committee says in its statement, it is concerned that the CETA has received qualified audit opinion for 4 consecutive financial years since the 2018-2019 financial year. That's 1. 2, the committee further expressed concern that governance challenges at the CETA resulted in the entity being under administration in 2011 and 2020 with the subsequent dissolution of relevant boards.
So, here's another factual inaccuracy, Mr. Mdluli. Maybe I understand that when certain entities appear, only one statement get issued. But let me just correct you there. 2 entities appeared before the portfolio committee on the 24th of August. And the comments that you just referred to don't relate to the construction CETA, actually relate to the services CETA.
Yeah, well, the one that relates to you, I know I read the full thing, but the one that relates to you, it says the committee further expressed concern that governance challenges at the Construction Education and Training Authority resulted in the entity being under administration in 2011 and 2020. If it's a mistake, it's their mistake that they would have put down.
Yeah, but again, factually, the CETA was under administration in 2019 up until 2021. This new board that I chair, that I lead, was appointed in August 2022 for a half term that comes to an end in March 2025. So it's very important that we have the factual accuracies put into light, because it's important for the public to understand why facts are important. But let me tell you something which stakeholders heard this morning and afternoon, Mr. Mdluli. Stakeholders heard that between 2020 up until 2023, in the 2023-24 financial year end, the CETA's audit performance moved. Audit performance, annual performance plans and in the implementation moved from 32% to up to 92%. At the last check, CETA's performance was sitting at 92%, at least at the level of annual performance plan in relation to their programs that they sign with the Department of Higher Education's DG in a service level agreement. Finally, stakeholders heard this morning and afternoon that the new financial team at CETA reduced material irregularities from 5 to at least 2, and now with 1 left for engagement with the Auditor General that did the latest audit for the year 2023-2024. So it's very important that these facts are placed in the public for people to engage with them, because it's always not correct that whatever is made as an accusation is therefore factually correct. And our disappointment.
But did you tell before you wrap up, did you tell the stakeholders then, also today, that you have spent 300 million on law firms to deal with various matters?
No, but also that's factually correct. There's no 300 million.
So the committee is factually incorrect by raising that.
But remember what I said, Mr. Mdluli, that the unfortunate part, which is part of our report and our response, because remember, there was also no time, there were 2 CETAs there, time limitations, our engagement was quite frankly skewed on what the media has reported. We have, however, pleasantly appreciated the opportunity that we've been given the chance to put down these in writing in a report. Facts don't lie, Mr. Mdluli. And facts are subject to verification, audit, and counter proof, and by those who have the legal authority to do so. And
let's just get clarity. You're saying the portfolio committee is wrongly attributing this 300 million on law firms to you, because they've written here the Construction Education and Training Authority. They are attributing. They're saying the committee further expresses concern that the CETA has spent around 300 million on law firms to deal with the various matters.
All I can say, Mr. Mdluli, is that the CETA, through its chairperson, CEO, and all executives appeared before a committee to place before them factually related information that relate to the work of CETA since their appointment in August 2022 and subsequently. Anything else, and I say this with respect, anything else before that is not what this board can account for. And if that amount is a globalization of what has been spent to date, those things can be very dissected by management and broken down. But I can rest assure you that the CETA that I lead, the board that I lead, interact and engage with reports and submissions brought to it by the executive management through the CEO and all who are senior, and we interact, apply our minds, and where possible, make decisions and approvals based on information made before us. And you can't then amortize all information relating to CETA from days immemorial and want to associate that with the current institution that we lead. However, we've told stakeholders that where possible, the information that CETA and the CEO and executive management, including the board, reports on is subject to public scrutiny, is subject to audit verification, it's subject to all forms of checks and balances, because it would be incorrect to place information before the public that is factually untested, factually incorrect, and that cannot be verified. So we challenge anyone who has information to the contrary to provide that before the CETA. But I can tell you now, and I can say this without any fear of contradictions, that the information we reported, we wrote to the minister, we wrote to the portfolio committee, we presented to stakeholders, is subject to scrutiny legally and audit scrutiny.